Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I'm Nick, and beside me here shortly is Brit. We're both, believe it or not, experiencing some technical difficulties. I had everything up on my laptop ready to go, and then about a minute before tea time, it all just went down. So I have no idea what's going on. So we're going to try to restart the machine, see what happens. However, I do have it up here on the phone, so if you guys do want to follow, let me see if I can turn it sideways, even get you a little bit better. There we go. If you guys do want to give us a follow, that's totally fine for right now. So that being said, before we get started into today's episode, don't forget everyone to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can follow us on our various social media platforms, the MHRT Network at their social media platforms. I apologize. If you want to follow us, you can follow us at Clusterpuck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, and then at the Clusterpuck Podcast on Facebook. Okay, so today we have kind of a good episode teed up for you guys. Once Britt gets in here, it'll be awesome. We're going to chat about the burning questions that the Avalanche are faced with for this upcoming season. Let me see if I can kind of move it over here a little bit. So for the burning questions for this upcoming season, obviously not a lot has gone down since the last time we spoke. A couple signings, they even got a goaltender. I guess as far as coaching changes, there were a few coaching changes that occurred down in the AHL, and some people have left, some people have come back, and we did get and sign a new goalie from the Ottawa pipeline. So just that's to kind of keep you updated on things. So everything else, though, again, it's been rather bleak, to be completely honest with you. So once Britt hops in, we're going to go ahead and kind of get started with the questions. So the first one that we will address is regarding Gabe Landeskog, and you guys can kind of tell from the thumbnail and everything that's going to be the main focus on today's episode, as far as what's up. What is he coming back, and if he does, will he play? Stuff like that. So regarding Landeskog, what the future holds. We're also going to talk about Val Nichushkin. We're going to talk about kind of the division for the Central, kind of where the Avalanche rank after everything's kind of sorted out. And we're going to talk goaltending as far as Alexander Georgiev and the new coaching that will bring on his side of things. So good chunk of stuff. So I guess we'll kind of jump into that first while we're waiting for Britt. So the burning question that we had on our end was, will Gabe Landeskog play again? Now, if you guys remember from a good long while ago, maybe not a good long while ago, but a little bit ago, there was a quick announcement from Gabe Landeskog saying, he's still ready to go. Now, keep in mind, everyone thought that was going to be a retirement video. They just made a quick little media presser within a few days, and everyone's like, okay, this is the end. Like, we're done. But he didn't. He didn't say I'm done. He didn't say anything like that. He just basically said, hey, I'm healing. I'm on the right path. So we're gonna get ready to go. Oh, hang on. Hey, there we go. Nope, now I can be done with this one. Okay, maybe we're not back. I can't tell. So we'll just see what happens if we are back or not. But as far as I'm aware. Hey, Britt, I'm having some problems of my own, so I'm
double technical issues.
I'm glad you're here. I'm not even kidding. Like about a minute before everything was going to get started, my whole machine shut down. Oh, in fact, now my computer just went down again. So that just means we're just gonna live without it. Okay, so while I'm kind of getting things set up here, let me see if that can work. So the burning question, Britt, that we had was Gabe Landeskog.
Yeah.
Is he going to play again? That's the big question. For me, it is a resounding yes. And I was going to explain why in a second. And then I thought I had everything back under control, and now I don't. So
this is God's way to tell us, like, shut up and take the summer off of hockey.
No, seriously though. So I will let you go ahead and kind of state your business as far as if Landeskog's coming back. I will turn my camera off momentarily. I'm still listening, but I'll see if I can get stuff figured out. So is Gabe Landeskog coming back?
So I've kind of had this like internal fight, sometimes almost feeling a little bit mad about it, that maybe Landeskog is doing a disservice to the team by not retiring at this point, or he's almost like hurting the team or holding us back. And then with the whole nuke thing, it felt like it was even more on display as to how badly we truly needed some answers as to Gabe and what we expect out of him. And I think I've kind of just come to the conclusion that they absolutely have to be anticipating him coming back, and not just coming back, but coming back strongly. And they anticipate him still being able to perform, because sometimes it's hard to know when we do all these pretend rosters and pretend line setups and stuff. And it's like, a lot of people are still slotting him for the second line, but you got to wonder, is there a chance that he could come back and he might have to be a fourth line guy, which it's crazy to think about a fourth line guy getting paid $8 million, but who knows? And I feel like at this point, now that the dust is kind of settled on free agency and the draft and the moves that we've made, I mean, they absolutely have to anticipate him coming back. They didn't spend his LTIR money. It seems that they're really holding on to leaving that LTIR, the cap that we could be using between Nuke and Gabe. They've left it there. And if they did plan to use it, it would be really poor choice, because what we could have spent it on won't be very well spent at this point. And you can see that they've been very, very diligent in filling little holes with very cheap role players. That's basically all we did in free agency, is we picked up some role players, and I don't know if we really did anything that the rest of the league could even care about or notice. I mean, we have been so far off everyone else's radar. They have to expect him to come back, and I would hope, if not the first game of the year, pretty close to it. And when you consider the amount of literal roster players that we have, we don't have a full NHL team right now. And granted, we are kind of we're a team that has really done well off of very late notice PTOs. So like the Evan Rodriguez's, the guys like that. But we have too many holes right now to even anticipate PTOs filling in those spots. So I would guess that between LOC, we expect to have him back.
Yeah. I'd be on the same board as you in the regard that I think he does come back. Will it be for the beginning of the season? And I'm thinking kind of more November-ish, kind of maybe get that extra leeway. He could be ready. And like I was kind of saying earlier, there was that press conference that he did have for the media that he said he's trending in that direction.
Yeah, but and it's almost exactly did that to really put him out there and be like, really have that emotional effect of actually seeing him and not someone just talking about him. Like, remember all the emotions of, he's still our captain. And I think you get a lot more when you actually see him talking about it and looking healthy, and remember he's not just like the ghost of Landeskog anymore.
Exactly. But that's kind of the big key that you did bring up, is I wonder if that's plan, so to speak, is if he does come back, that's cap that comes back onto the books.
Right. And that's a lot.
It is a lot. So you're effectively, that's kind of what they've been tied to, is signing these guys to these super low paying contracts if they can, to just try to save any kind of money they can. They've put themselves in a pretty big bind if this is something he decides to do. Obviously, it's a welcome addition. We missed him a lot.
Right. Well, if they'd gone out there and spent over the cap anticipating Gabe going on LTI to start the year, that kind of would have been a good indicator that they will either be trading Nuke or, if they go above, they're going to have to take something off. So I think it would have been a good guess that either Nuke or Landeskog would be the subtractor come the start of the season, but they really haven't.
Yeah. And so branching off of that then, so assume he does play and assume it is early November, basically almost an entire season.
And it also is, at this point, people will probably want him to be back the first game of the season if possible, but we've taken this much time and they've said a million times that like one setback means starting all over. So they're not going to do absolutely anything to we can't think of the word, to sacrifice all of the time that he's already taken off and have any setbacks. Like they're not going to push it and take the possibility of messing it up even more. So
yeah. And so assume he is fully recovered, he's fully healthy, everything like that, and he does play. That's the next burning question, is who are we getting back truly, right? Are we getting the Gabe Landeskog of old? Because keep in mind, this is a procedure, and it took him
I'm not sure if it's my internet or your internet that's being weird here. Let's see.
all right, fine.
Is it you? I thought that mine was frozen. So
no, this one's going to be on me for today. So you know what? We're just going to shut down the computer and just going to go off the mobile today. So, okay. So what I was asking is, what Landeskog are we going to get back? Are we going to get back the one that we've been used to, the one that took us and we won the cup? Or are we getting somebody else? Somebody that they're going to play pretty gingerly. They're just not going to be the same. What do you think? Who are we going to get?
I don't know. It's hard. I mean, to really think about it, you have to put into focus who he was as a player, which I think that it is kind of a blessing that while he's able to play and keep up with guys like McKinnon and Rantanen, and he plays with some of the best players in the world, which isn't easy. The best players in the world aren't easy to play with. You have to have the mind and the IQ, but he's not the exact same in them. He's not the fastest. He's not he doesn't have the silkiest hands. He's got such a distinct game that is such a grinding, just relentlessness. He's almost just like his own version of a rat, but he's just so attractive, I guess, that he doesn't really get the same label as Brad Marchand. But I do think in the end that it is going to benefit him that he is someone who didn't rely on fast skating or things that require those kind of delicate movements on his knees. I really do think that he's also someone who's incapable of toning it down. So I don't if he comes back and his knee is good right away, which what's nice is I think that we hit it was like 12 to 16 months, right? Something like that. And the low end of the quickest return date was right at the beginning of the playoffs last year. So they have over rehabbed even longer than what they anticipated. So he should be able, he said he doesn't feel any pain. And that's part of the problem with him wanting to come back. He wanted to come back faster is it's not a pain thing. It's just that if you don't rehab it correctly, one twist and it's gone. So I just don't know. They've rehabbed it so delicately that I think he's going to be able to come out and go balls to the walls. And he's already said that it's not a pain thing. So I feel like we'll see out of him. I really do think he can get back to almost max. I mean, he has been skating and staying in great shape, and it's not a surgery, it seems, that ever required him to be bedridden. So I would imagine we'll see him back to near form hopefully playing second or third line. But what's nice about him is he's always been someone that's gone up and down. So we might utilize him as a role player since we do have such a different dynamic on this team versus other teams we've had in the past. He might be a good person that can go up and down the line as he gets back into the game and finds his feet and finds his IQ. It might be really, really helpful to utilize him on the lower lines as he builds his speed and his stamina back up.
Yep, and I think that's exactly right. He is somebody that I bet you he would be just absolutely chomping at the bit to just be on that second line or even first line with his teammates and kind of get the band back together and stuff like that. But I think you're exactly right. I think this is kind of one of those situations where even though he's back and we have over rehabbed him, which again, it's totally better to be safe in this type of an instance. It's one of those where they are, even though they might let him back on the ice, it might not be with those massive minutes that he wants to have.
Right.
So it's kind of that work up to
he
that.
Is what, 30, 33?
He's not young enough.
Yeah.
Never is.
33, and he's been in the NHL since he was 18, and he is put in some hard minutes, but hopefully he can come back, as healthy as ever.
I hope so. So with that, though, I mean, again, it's trending in the right direction, and I know these guys are going to take every precaution they can to make sure that they have zero setbacks. Because again, any setback, you're starting that over again, and I don't think he, let alone the team, can afford to do that, because if that's the case, he may not see the ice again in his professional career.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they can't do this again. And I think this is the only option now that they've done this. But it's pretty cool because you think about it. If this goes well, he's setting a new precedent, just like the Jack Eichel thing, that this is possible for NHL players to do and recover from. So, I mean, that's reassuring. But it'll definitely be interesting. I've been thinking about the lines a lot lately, and like the more I settle on it, I'm really hoping that we can kind of graduate, which sounds like a downgrade, but I think it's more of a graduation. If we can move down with Casey Middleset, I'd really like to just kind of settle on having those two together on the second line. And I think that eventually Gabe could be such a good addition to that, depending Gabe, Nuke, whoever comes back. I don't know. But just Joanne Lehkonen and McKinnon to me is just the most lethal line ever. And we are always going to be switching it up. But as far as like the basics go, I really, really hope to see Mikko and Middlestead kind of establish a form, like a bond. And then hopefully, I mean, ideally, Gabe would be a great person to throw in there with them. I mean, Gabe is so different than anyone on our top six. I really think that he could put in any line, though, honestly. But I'd like to see him with it when he's back to near normal form. I'd love to see him with Mikko and Middlestead, because he could bring such a nice little tie on the present of those two. I just think he would be the perfect finale on the second line, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see him go out there and play on the first line. Those guys are just so fast, and so I don't know. I think he'll probably shake up and settle up on the second or third line.
Yeah, and I think that's totally valid. And again, we signed Casey Middlestead to this deal for a reason. We think he has that potential. So Landeskog, still being the captain that he is, I still think he'd see some pretty big chunk of change minutes. But then again, Jared Bednar has always done the line shakeup, right? So that it is possible that Middlestead goes up to the first and Landeskog mans the second, or even vice versa. So,
yeah, and that's what I liked. There was kind of like a summation of the way Bednar does it is even in our forward core and crew, we really still kind of go more so in pairs at any given time with a rotating outside cast. A lot of the time it seems like we get those outliers that kind of rotate in and out. And that's what he leans on those. And then it's like you have your traditional like standard guys that, I mean, I don't know if other teams rotate nearly like They rotate sometimes, but for the frequency of like literally first to fourth line that we see sometimes in ours, it's interesting. And now that a lot of our fourth liners are gone after this year, it'll be really interesting to see how much more movement, like straight up from first to fourth, will happen now that we don't really have those solidified guys that have been there and then just filling
Yeah.
in one position. I mean, it could be a very interesting year, and you might see some guys earning some spots that you never anticipated.
Yeah. And speaking of spots that we're not anticipating and lines and stuff like that, that is another burning question. And it does come with a lot of controversy. And Brett, I know you did want to talk about this for a second because he did appear on a show and talked a little bit about this, but it is on Val Nichushkin.
Yeah.
What, I guess the ultimate question that remains is, does he remain on the Avalanche or does he not? And for what reason?
Do you want to go first or do you want me?
I will have you go first just because I'm probably going to be piggybacking a lot off of it because I still haven't seen that interview. So.
Okay, so and that's what the thing is. The interview is completely in Russia, and it's with I can't remember the name of it. I mean, it was Russian, but there's not even really like a long. So it's this long interview. Like it's apparently this guy is one of the more popular podcast interviewers, like long form interviewers in Russia. And so he did this before the playoffs, and it's being released into 3 different segments. And so 1 and 2 has been released, and it's just kind of been going back and forth in my brain because ultimately any popular media in Russia is gonna be kind of propaganda-ish, and you have to remember that. Like none of it is real news, if that makes sense. So he went on there and it felt really fluffy. Granted, this was him talking prior to the playoff exit of this year. And the way that he said it kind of makes me think that he definitely downplayed what happened. But I should pull up. I forgot to pull it back up when I restarted my computer. But so he said that prior to his leaving in Seattle, he had bursitis. Is that how it's pronounced? Bursitis in his shoulder that he's been struggling with or something. And the night before the whole thing went down, he was already leaving Seattle. They had said that he had been getting these shots and they weren't working. So then he got this other shot, which they didn't specify what it was. It's all kind of rough. He was going to fly back to Denver and then he was done for the Seattle series already, which is so weird to me because I don't remember. That wasn't news at all. And so he was already done with the Seattle thing. And he said, so they'd already decided that he was going to be flying out to Denver the next day. And this was the night before the day that he got caught or got in trouble. And he said he had friends in town. And since he knew he was done with the series already, I was trying to find the words. So weird. He says, I had friends in town. So I decided to go out with them and I made some decisions I shouldn't have, which feels like the underplay of the year.
And this was talking about last year? Or the Seattle series?
The Seattle one. Okay. So after the team I'm just going to read the quick version of it. After the team arrived in Seattle, it was decided that Val would skip the game and would instead fly to Denver to get the next injection done. I'm guessing the road medic didn't have the capabilities to do that. It was then decided he would skip the entire series. Injection required a period of rest. Remember, this is the translation, so some of it might sound weird. Injection required a period of rest for it to work, so it would probably not be simple painkillers or something. This is just some extra input. But he had been struggling a lot with insomnia and chronic pain. They had really affected him emotionally. So this is where he says his friends were in Seattle at the time, and knowing he was not going to be there in the rest of the series, Val spent some time with them. And that's literally what it's like. Just if you're going to be honest, be honest. Say I went out and got what, because spent some time with them. He says that he didn't make the best decision possible, as though the only mistake decision was like Coke or something. I have no idea. Val says it's sad that the team did not advance to the next round, as he would have been ready to play well. But because it didn't and he wasn't, the situation was blown out of proportion, which I don't think that he gets to say it's blown out of proportion. Val believes it was ultimately the wrong thing to do, as it led to the wild mass guessing. So with them not talking to the news, they said that because of his emotional state, Val decided not to comment on the incident any further. The Avalanche supported him in his decision, saying that it's better not to say anything and let the situation being forgotten instead of keeping it in the news. Val believes it was the worst thing to do, as it led to wild mass guess. He thinks it would have been easier on him to set the record straight back then. He also thinks that now is the right time to do it, April 24, 24. This, of course, does not explain why he was suspended for it if he had nothing to do with it. So, and the guy says that they're going to go into it more in part 3, but like, it's the whole thing is so weird to me that if he was already supposed to go home, why would the team like encourage him not to say anything? Why would they leave all of the extra, answer the questions that you can at least answer quickly and easily, which is kind of what makes me believe that he's maybe forgetting some parts of it, or
I don't address it head on if there was nothing to.
Yeah, and so like now he's saying, so now is the right time to put this all out in the clear, and he literally just made for more questions.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just a translation problem. I don't know. He's not my favorite person in the world right now still, but I do believe that we will be. I think that they have explored all options to trade him. And in the end, the way that it shakes up, it left me, I think, with a little more sympathy for the situation, but still really angry. And also makes me kind of question if the team maybe feels a little bit of guilt for having pushed him, and that's what led to any substance issues, which might be why they are not throwing it out there that they're going to try to trade him or buy him out or anything like that. That might be part of why they seem to have a little more burn to keep him than the fans do. Ultimately, as long as he gets reinstated, he will be playing for the Avs. And honestly, any trade or any move that we make would end up being a loss. It's easy, to what have you done for me lately? But Val, at the top of his game, is one of the top 10 wingers in the NHL and in the world. So it's hard to justify just hastily getting rid of him or just getting rid of him for the sake of getting rid of him. But
yeah,
I mean, next chance is like the last chance. But I think should he not get reinstated or have any kind of hiccup in getting reinstated, which sure would be great if we knew what reinstatement required. But I mean, I think that he's going to be on a very short leash, and one more strike and he's literally going to be yeeted to the moon. But I do think that he will be coming back to play with the Avs again.
Yeah. I'm inclined to agree with you on that. I kind of think it's the same type of situation where this feels like it's like strike 2 of 3 type of deal. Obviously, I think now the suspension kicked in as soon as it happened, right? So really, it's not. He's only missing probably a couple of months, a month, or something like that of the season, and then he will be coming back.
It's interesting that they don't change his suspension to have to be like in-season suspension. Like he's suspended for 6 months, but only one of those is actually actively playing hockey.
I know it's just weird. Now, that being said, I understand a lot of people's frustration with him. Obviously, this is the second year in a row that this has been something that has agitated the team to kind of where it really broke off their mental capacity to stay focused on the game, potentially, right? That's what a lot of people are saying. However, looking at it from two sides of everything. Obviously, we don't know the whole story other than it was a failed drug test. Now, was that something that was because of him? Was that something that maybe the organization had something to do on? I took a lot of time to think on it, and so I'm trying to also play kind of the both sides of the field type thing. He is a valuable asset to the team, and he was the entire season. Like, you could tell when Val Nichushkin was not playing. And even in the playoffs, despite the fact that he then missed the rest of that playoff. He still held the record for most goals for a good long while, even
Up
throughout the
until
next
the
round, and I
Stanley
think
Cup
even to the
final.
finals. Yeah, so like he was like you could not put a number on how valuable he was.
Yeah. Numbers. So there was kind of cool. One little tidbit that they said was neat. Also in the interview, there's a couple interesting things about him because he's honestly like this just really big, weird, kind of scary dude that we talk about. We love,
Russian.
but
What do
we
you
don't
want?
really love him. So apparently, when he came from Dallas, his number wasn't 13, and Joe Sakic basically said, "You need to pick a new number, dude. Like we're starting over completely because his whole ride in Dallas was so bad." Sakic said, "I want you to pick a new number." And that he had decided to pick 13. That was Val Kaminsky's new number, or that was Val Kaminsky's number that he really liked. And he had won the cup with Sakic. But yeah, so basically it was like Sakic told him, "You're starting a new life, pick a new number." And he settled on 13. So it was kind of cute.
There you go. That's fun. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, end of the day, all things considered and all things set aside, it's going to be one of those you're going to have to really earn the trust back type situations, but I think he does end up playing, and it's going to be, I think, really closely monitored not only by the league but by the organization.
I wouldn't be surprised, and he's just lucky that he's like a grown man with a wife, because if he was a younger guy, they would probably staple him with someone and basically put him on all but a physical leash.
Oh yeah, exactly. So again, it'll have to be one of those things. I'm sure there's that kind of anger period has probably blown over for most of us. Now it's just kind of this less than platonic feel, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, right now is a weird time.
You're just kind of like,
there's nothing else to talk about with the apps. So
so it's going to just be that kind of work our way literally back from step one on the trust bridge and rebuild it. And then depending on how he does, if he actually fulfills a full season plus the postseason, injury barring, then we're in for a different conversation. So again, it's a tough situation. It's not a fun one to be in, especially being part of that organization for so long, working your way to a port where you have a $6+ million contract per year. You've won a cup with the team. I mean, it was a lot. That was, a lot of heartbreak because of this type of situation. But again, the Avalanche have probably explored every option, and I think the one that they're on right now is to just keep it. Strike two's already on the board, but I think one more slip up in this type of situation where the Avalanche are not involved, then I think it'll break it up. So have to keep tabs on it throughout the season, but again, it's just one of those things where you just kind of hope for literally the best.
I was reading this. They just came out with it yesterday. So they did a Trenin interview too. I don't know. Do you want me to fill you in on a little bit?
A Trenin interview?
They did a Trenin one, because he's Russian too. So they also had Trenin and Georgiev.
Okay.
So let me see. During his time with the Avs, Trenin was renting an apartment. Came surprise. So it sounded like Trenin did want to stay with the Avs. Trenin thinks the Preds were a tighter team than the Avs currently are. The Avs are a bit too cliquey for them. He says the groups of 3 or 4 guys would usually stick together and not mingle much with the rest of the team. Trenin believes it might be due to several Avs players being fresh from an NHLPA, a players' assistance program. Not having the entire team drinking or partying together makes sense. Georgie, a former Ranger, is of high opinion on the Avs organization, on the Rangers organization, says that he treats players great, especially food-wise. Avs did not provide lunch during game days. Georgie has no idea why, since they provide breakfast on those. The guys on the Avs either went out or went home for lunch during game days. So on his first lunchless day, Georgie was sitting alone and confused, not being informed of no lunch policy. Fortunately, a started serviceman shared a burrito with him. Georgie wasn't in net that night, so it was whatever. Georgie says Avs organization had improved a lot the past season. The arena was renovated. The Avs, Georgie believes, is one of the better organizations in the league. He says the Ducks are pretty terrible, and the Coyotes, RIP, wouldn't pay for good hotels and made the players stay in crappy ones on road trips.
Well, now that's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah. McKinnon is very involved in coaching. I don't know if you want me to keep going. I didn't realize they just released this one. So McKinnon's involved a lot in the coaching process, says Georgie. Says many of the things around here are molded according to his wishes. The staff takes his opinion seriously. He's like a coach on the ice.
I mean,
Spend less time on the ice and more time in the gym. Ice time is often optional during training days. Georgie compliments Bednar, calls him amazing. Bednar gives everything to the players as long as they will use it to improve their play. Georgie calls Nate kind of an assistant to Bednar. This season, they had finally started providing lunch on game days. McKinnon's chickpea pasta is a real thing, Georgie testifies. It's served for the lunch among other quality, healthy options. You don't have to eat it if you're okay with breaking Nate's heart. Georgie enjoys catching McKinnon's pucks during practice. He used to be quite a small goalie back in junior. Since then, he developed a strat of standing upright when anticipating a shot up top instead of always dropping down. When Georgie arrived in Denver, McKinnon was always shooting at the top of the net during practice drills, and Georgie would catch every shot. This pissed Nate off to no end. Nate would skip to the goaltending coach and complain angrily that Georgie won't drop down. Nate did solve him 2 months later, diversing his shots portfolio. That's funny.
And look what happened.
Here's the quick on to Nichushkin, the photo with a gun in his Instagram story post Seattle. Perhaps it was inappropriate for the moment. It didn't occur to him back then. This is about his, do you remember that picture of him with the guns? Oh my God. It didn't occur to him back then that people might not like it as he was detached from this all, whatever that means. Apparently he does post guns quite often, at least once a year. He used to visit shooting ranges with the Stars. He is so weird.
He's Russian. That's about my excuse for everything.
He posted
Interesting.
I'm trying to see. So fun things. Val hates Chipotle. In case you're wondering,
I used to. That's something we had in common for a little bit.
Okay, so I'll have to search that more. It doesn't.
That sounds like there's a lot.
We're never going to get a good story on Val until it's people that are no longer going to be affected career-wise or friend-wise can speak freely. So
interesting. So let's move on from that one. And you actually did kind of pull into the next burning question that we had, and that has to do with Alexander Georgiev. So the question is obvious. So let me first preface with this, as Brit now her computer issues are going to happen. Let me preface with this before we get to the Alexander Georgiev question. He did finish first, as in with the most wins in the regular season, right? Also keep in mind he played the most games, right? So there's kind of a ratio there that you need to keep in mind. The question now becomes, with this new coaching staff and this new style of play and everything that kind of Brit had even mentioned in that little article that she read, the burning question becomes, what type of Alexander Georgiev will we see? And the reason that is asked is because last year he played very well, obviously, but he did have a good chunk of these kind of clunky games where he just disappeared entirely. Like he was pretty bad. And it even led all the way up until that game one of that first round against Winnipeg, where it just seemed like he was broken from the start. And nobody had any clue on what had happened. You're already this far. You can't just switch to the next guy. You know, what was going to happen. But then he turned that around pretty quick, and he played very well throughout the remainder of the season. Yeah, there were a few that it's like, well, you shouldn't have let those go, but that's every goalie, right? So what kind of Alexander Georgiev are we going to get this year? Keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, this is the final year on his contract, I think. So in my opinion, right, he's more seasoned. You know, obviously we have seen him from the first year, the second year. We've made the playoffs, right? He has done well enough so that we make the playoffs, and in this case, at least advance in the playoffs, right? So we know he has that capability. It was your turn, by the way.
Oh, goodness sake.
It's all right. So
Hit
Georgiev,
new.
I was
I didn't
talking about. You kind of mentioned this, and so that was the burning question: is what kind of Georgiev are we going to see? So I was saying, the fact that he was first in wins last year, and the fact that even though he had the most games, keep that in mind.
Right. It's so hard to keep that in mind. Like, does it matter or does it not? It's like plus minus. It's save average.
It does,
kind of
right?
does.
So,
And
that was.
I think it's more of a testament to us overusing him.
It is, and that was going to be my next question. Before I get to that, let me kind of finish my thought here. But so I said every year he's been playing. So this last season, the year before that, we've made the playoffs. We have been in contention for first place in the Central Division every single time, and in last year's case, even advanced to a point where we got to 6 games throughout the Dallas series. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. Georgiev plays well enough that you will get
serviceable is what we need. Serviceable with the team that we have. None of those wins in season or postseason can be attributed directly to Georgiev. Not saying that he's bad, but I'm just saying he's never stolen anything for us.
Exactly. And so the new question becomes, in one way or another, will he have less duds of games than last season? And if you think so or not, why? And
no, I think that they're going to do everything possible to just get through with him this year, while also just testing the waters to see if Annunen can steal that spot from him. I think that Annunen is going to be given the reins and say, if you can steal it, you can have it. I just I've had a lot of faith in Georgiev, and obviously I want him to succeed. Like, the success of him is ultimately the success of the Avs, but it's just never not quite been a good fit. Even when he's playing his best, it just feels like we've never had any solidified stretch of time where it really felt like he was our goalie, the man, the guy. It feels like it's been since we all loved Grubauer, which is even prior to our playoff run with him. We just have never had a goalie that we could all go all in on and buy all in on and trust him and know that he was our goalie, even with Kemper in and out. I think that our actions this summer have proved that we have no intentions to re-sign him after his contract, and that he's not going to be the goalie of the future. We drafted 3 goalies, I believe, maybe even more, and then we just signed. We lost we lost home, and we just signed Mendelos. Is that his name? From the Senators. We are really in bed with the Senators, which is fine if we can keep picking up. So he doesn't have great stats. You can't read into him too much. He's only got a couple NHL games. The most notable was he had one game where he stopped 46 of 48 shots. And other than that, he had 2 losses, but you really can't read into stats when they were playing for the Senators, because who knows what the Senators did in front of him. They haven't been good for so long that it's irrelevant. But if anything, it sounds like he's going to be a perfectly serviceable AHL goalie, that it's more of an AHL move. And now, once again, poor Trent Miner will not be moving up on the hierarchy of Avalanche goalies. He is essentially...
He stays with the Grizzlies.
He is, man,
good
and he's
thing,
just
too. We need him.
I know. I think he's the longest tenured, Colorado hockey organization for the Avs in existence. It feels like he's been around forever, but he's just never quite been able to.
But I tell you what, though, he's fun to watch on those.
I love him.
Grizzlies games. Oh my gosh!
And it's just made me wonder, is he really just incapable of getting better, or does he just keep ending up in the wrong place at the wrong time when you're injured, when you could get a call up, or every time he does play for the Eagles, something goes wrong, or that's when someone else decides to pop off, and then boom, we bring in Prosvetov, who's an NHL tweener, and obviously he's going to get that AHL spot. So I don't know. Trent Miner, I feel like, has gotten the short end of the stick for way too long, but I think this guy will ultimately be our third in line. But the fact that we've just threw out 500 hooks in these goalies that we drafted, hoping that a couple says that we don't anticipate putting a whole lot of effort or money into retaining Georgiev. And that even if we were to go on a run and win the cup this year, we don't.
No guarantee.
Yeah, you're not guaranteed anything. Even look at Kemper. We didn't resign him after winning a cup with us. So hopefully for his own personal stock value, he can go out and have a really good year and make that some other team will go overpay him just like the Caps did. And then the Caps went, oops.
Now look.
Yeah. That's what Grobauer, I mean, although we aren't very good at developing goalies, we do seem to have the right timing in getting rid of them because Grubauer and Kemper have both gone on to really not do very well.
Yeah. My opinion on the number of duds, I think it does go down, and for that kind of that same reason that you were saying is because I feel like the Avalanche are going to give Justus Annunen more games to play, right? Which I think ultimately is going to be better for both goalies because Annunen finally gets that ice time that he wants, and we've seen those flashes where a lot of people have even commented and messaged us saying, "Oh, you need to put in Annunen because he had a couple of shutouts in a row," right? But he's proven to himself that he is the now backup for now, but now his ambition is to become that starter. So that gives Annunen more games to play, and in doing so, it gives Georgiev more of a rest time, so he's not overburdened with
and for the games with a high mental load too, because really you think about it, we essentially put Annunen in all the games that Georgiev could have. It could have been helpful for Georgiev to play some of those like free games. You know, he could he taking those Blackhawk games, taking all the games with a low mental load.
They become more routine than straining. Yep, and I totally agree. So I think with Annunen's help, Georgiev's number of duds go down because he doesn't need to play as much. I'm not going to say he's not giving it up.
Yeah.
How'd that work? Did I just get a little thumbs up?
I have.
Can I do that again? Oh my gosh.
That was pretty neat. They're like,
that was cool.
You're happy. We're happy.
Anyways,
I like that. Not me.
Easily distracted by a wandering thumb bubble. But I think it's the sense of you're not taking away his ice time. You are giving him rest. Rest that is very important.
Such a delicate balance in overworking goalies.
It really is.
It didn't used to be like that. Goalies I think Hellebuck is the only one left. Hellebuck is the only one that can play near a full season. And look at what they
Georgiev did. He played the most games and had the most wins, right, last season?
Yeah, and that's the same with Bob. He ran out of juice last year, and this year they were far more meticulous in the number and the types of games that they let him sit out for. And Bro made it all the way to the end, playing like himself, and that's it's a different game now. These goalies that used to be able to play every single game and play every single game through the playoffs, that's because they stood up for half the game. I mean, the game was so far less demanding on your body and emotionally. I think a lot of these guys get screwed emotionally before they get screwed physically. I mean, I'll say it a billion bajillion times is the game of goalie right now is so reliant on a good mental health. And there's something about Georgiev that I just don't know that he's quite happy in Colorado. But he's got a new driving factor, and that's going to be, I need a new job after this. And he definitely hasn't caught any eyes in a good way. At the beginning of the playoffs this year, he was truly the laughingstock of the entire NHL, especially considering his NHL All-Star nomination. Like that just kind of
he ended up being the best goalie, by the way.
Definitely did, which I'm glad he did, because that's not fair to him that he basically was thrown in because he got the most clicks because the goalie with the most wins was at the top. So after the first few goalies that everybody wanted to go, everybody just randomly clicked the top one, and that's how he got in. But people were pretty brutal about that, and I hated the discourse around that. Even like some of my favorite like podcasts, the like What Chaos and stuff, they made fun of it a lot. And so I was really glad that he went out there and he shut Connor McDavid down. He did well, but he does not have many positive discussions revolving around him outside of the Avs crew. Like he's not known for much right now. So he's definitely got some reputation building to do. And I think a chip on his shoulder is probably going to be the best way to get a wonderful year out of him.
Yep. And I think that's absolutely right. So I think it's obviously in our best interest that right now your mentality should be this. He's your goalie. You should support him.
Yeah.
Right. That is fandom at its finest. You support the team for the team's sake, despite your personal preferences. So I think we'll kind of wrap this episode up with those burning questions. Let us know, everybody, your thoughts as far as Landeskog, if he's coming back or not, what it's going to look like. Your thoughts on Valnichushkin, if he does play, if they trade him, your thoughts on that. And then for Alexander Georgiev, if you think he'll do better or worse than last season.
Did you see one more random thing? Danny Heino was hired assistant for the Eagles. My dad loved Danny.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then I saw that I was also mentioning a couple coaching changes. Peter Budaj, I think he followed what's his name, Cronin, to Anaheim. So it's just going to be Avalanche Junior over there. So it should be fun.
Exactly, and that's what I think the Ducks have a really bright future. I think Ducks and Sharks are gonna have a really fun rivalry coming up in a couple years.
I'm excited.
I'm very excited for it, and I think Cronin is an incredible coach. Do I think he'll keep Trevor Zegras around for very long? No, I don't think so. If you listen to Cronin talk, I don't think Zegras is his cup of tea, but I think the Ducks and the Sharks are going to be very serious coming up here, and I think Cronin's going to be a huge part of that. And he's known for surrounding himself with very, very good staff. Like, I don't know, it's going to be a danger.
It's going to be interesting, and the days continue to tick away. I think we're in the 70s until the season starts, so super excited.
Preseason starts soon.
In a couple months.
Just keeps, I don't know, this summer feels like it's done. And it feels like the Super Bowl was like a week ago.
It kind of does. It really does. But either way, we're going to wrap up the episode there. Thank you once again, everybody, for following along on this episode of Will My Computer Be Mean to Me? I think that should be the name of our podcast, to be completely honest. But we appreciate you guys for sticking with us through the technical difficulties. And hopefully the next time around, those get all sorted out. Quick little side note, there will be no episode, at least on my end, for next week. Brit, if she decides to do a solo shot and just steal all the fame and glory for next week, she's welcome to. My wife and I will be out of town, actually out of country.
Oh, so you're going?
We're going to Iceland. So we're super excited. In fact, we leave at the time of this recording. We're leaving tomorrow morning.
Oh, I didn't know already. This is gonna be so fun.
Yeah, it's upon us, and we are excited. I don't think I'm gonna sleep tonight. So, but thank you once again, everyone, for following along on this episode. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed it. If you do like what you saw, go ahead and follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck podcast go live. You can follow them on the various social media platforms of your choosing. If you do want to follow us, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs, AVS, on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. With that being said, we hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Hockey is back. It's coming soon, I mean. It's just going to be counting down the days at this point. So hopefully you guys stick around. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. And as always, as always, go Avs, go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my